This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610 and Martian Boo, and brought to you by Normandy 1998, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, since it costs you nothing and tells YouTube you like what I'm doing. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. A few months have passed since the last battle with Eggman, and during this time the Doctor has remained quiet, almost troublingly so, with Metal fearing that whatever he's currently working on must be his grandest and most diabolical scheme yet. To this end, he along with Mecha and Emerl have worked tirelessly in their study of the Phantom Ruby, as they believe that if harnessed to its full potential, it could be just the boost they and their fellow Scrapniks need to protect their home and the rest of the world. Through their research, the trio have discovered that the Ruby has the ability to manifest virtual reality constructs of anything the user can imagine, with these simulacrums being so realistic that most organics and even machines can't tell them from reality, as they perfectly imitate every sensory stimuli the genuine article does, with the only way to tell being Mecha's method of turning off sensory receptors and relying on raw scanner data. However, this is not all the Ruby can do, as when interfaced with a machine it amplifies its power several-fold, with the researchers being pleased to discover this holds true for androids, though they are still far from figuring out everything the mysterious gem can do. Unfortunately, it seems the time for study is over, as during a test of whether the Phantom Ruby also boosts speed by flying to and from Station Square as fast as he can, Metal receives a call from Sigma, urgently requesting he come home at once as something has happened. Recognizing the tone of concern in his friend's voice, Metal acknowledges and begins doubling back at once, with the sight that befalls him upon returning to the island making his hydraulics run cold. Mecha and Scrap laid out on the ground, having both taken significant damage. Worriedly, Metal questions who did this, fearing a new enemy has emerged, though gravely, Sigma explains that it was Emerl. Out of nowhere, he seemed to go into a trance and attempted to take flight in a southeasterly direction, and when Scrap and Mecha tried to stop him, he used a Chaos Blast on them. In a tone of horror, Metal states this isn't like Emerl at all, with the Green E-Series quite agreeing, with this making the incident all the more disquieting, though he thought his old friend would want to know. Nodding, the Bluebot states that he does, and that he'll investigate at once, before activating his Chaos Emerald radar, only to find that his son is in the vicinity of the Starfall Islands. Having never visited the place before, Metal has no idea what might be drawing Emerl there, though figuring it can't be good if the young Gizoid was in a trance-like state when he departed Scrapnik Island, he isn't prepared to take any chances, calling up Sonic and requesting his help in tracking down his son. Naturally, the Hedgehog isn't going to turn down such a request from one of his best friends, nor will Amy and Tails, who are also with him, with the organic trio all agreeing to make for the islands in the tornado ASAP, while Metal will join them once he takes care of one thing. As it turns out, this thing is a quick warp ride to Angel Island, as if some new threat has Emerald in a compulsion, Metal wants to take every possible precaution, and that means borrowing the Master Emerald so he can go super if need be. Though, out of respect, he first intends to get permission from the island and Emerald's guardian, and so seeks out Knuckles. However, to his surprise, he cannot find any trace of the Echidna, with him being in none of his usual haunts, but even more surprising is the fact that the Master Emerald is still in its altar, since as of late, Knuckles has taken to bringing it with him when he leaves the island for fear of Rouge making good on her threats to steal it. That implies he is either still here, or left so suddenly he didn't have time to gather the Emerald, as while the belligerent Echidna is many things, sloppy and forgetful and not on the list. Wondering if perhaps he too was placed into whatever trance affected Emerl, Metal decides to take the Master Emerald as he intended, figuring that if his theory is incorrect, he can apologize later. Now with everything he needs in hand, the fastest machine in existence takes flight, pushing his jet engine for all it is worth, as his son is waiting for him on the Starfall Islands, and he will stop at nothing to find, and if necessary, save him. Unfortunately, it seems this will not be a simple exercise, as when he attempts to call Sonic and inform him that he is inbound, he receives only static, with the same happening when he tries Amy and Tails. To make matters worse, when the island comes into view, a sudden burst of turbulence rocks the robot, with this being no mean feat as it takes a lot to forcibly change his trajectory. Scanning around, Metal attempts to find the source, as it felt like an atmospheric charge, though there is nothing to indicate such an anomaly. However, it does not take much computing power to conclude that it is connected to what he sees next, as a large blue portal with a reddish rim bursts into view and begins sucking him inside. Having had enough experience with sky portals to know they are seldom good, and fearing this might be what has caused his friends to lose radio contact, the Bluebot tries desperately to avoid it, but it seems it is already too late, as despite his best efforts, he is pulled into the void. Sometime later, Metal's boot-up sequence brings him back to consciousness on a patch of grass between two cliff faces. This is certainly a more pleasant awakening than when he was captured by the Time Eater, though being intelligent enough to recognize that he is still in unfamiliar and probably hostile territory, he prepares for battle while examining his surroundings. From the looks of things, he's all alone. The looks can be deceiving, as an androgynous voice that echoes through the very air itself states that he was able to escape cyberspace through his own power. Having no concept of what this cyberspace is, nor who is talking, Metal demands more context, though here the voice ignores him, instead calling him the Key, and giving him a series of directives. Find the emerald that rules above all, use it to destroy the Titans, then tear down the walls between dimensions. While these latter two instructions are just as enigmatic as the rest of the voice's words, the first is not, as this must surely mean the Master Emerald, with Metal only now realizing that he must have lost it in that portal. Strangely enough, he did not lose the Phantom Ruby, perhaps because he had already integrated into his system for the speed test, while he had simply been carrying the Master Emerald. Either way, recovering is now among his top priorities, with him activating his Emerald scanner in the hope that it will lead him to both it and Emerl himself. However, here he is met by a rather unpleasant surprise, as the moment he activates the tracker, everywhere around him registers as being drenched in chaos energy, so that not only is he unable to detect the two comparative needles in the haystack that he actually desires, but he receives a surge of data that threatens to cause a malfunction as his systems struggle to comprehend so much more of the energy than it is used to, with Metal promptly disabling the scan function for good measure. Though, this is not to say the attempt was a complete bust, as it seems the entirety of the archipelago is blanketed in chaos energy, meaning now he has a comprehensive map of the area he can bring to mind. Not to mention during his brief scan he also detected a second type of unfamiliar energy overlaid over the kind usually emitted by the emeralds, so perhaps if given some time he can construct a program that will filter out any places that give off that signature, leaving just what he seeks. However, time is something he does not have, as with his son and friends still out there, the most logical course of action is to search on foot in the meantime and gather what data he can that way. Taking off at speed, the blue bot begins winding his way between the cliffs and grinding on some nearby rails until he comes into a small plain inhabited by what appear to be a series of ancient yet technologically advanced robots. Hoping they can help him, Metal stops to speak with them, though it seems they are not programmed with such higher thinking functions as upon catching sight of him, they activate and immediately go on the attack. Having no time for such impediments, Metal makes short work of this bunch with a ring spark field, though it seems they're only the vanguard of a much larger force, as when he gets a little deeper in, he's confronted by half a dozen more who manifest out of similar portals to the one he fell through, only smaller and red. What's more, these ones seem to be guarding the ruins of a small building, with Metal wondering if this is all that remains of the ones who created them. Nonetheless, they are in his way and so are likewise dispatched, clearing a path for Metal to continue on until he comes across something definitely worth stopping for. Amy trapped in a circular cage that is also that reoccurring shade of red. Concern for his friend growing, Metal approaches and attempts to speak with the pink hedgehog, though it seems she cannot see or hear him, with this only amplifying his worry, as he has no way of knowing what other effects the cage might have. Nonetheless, he has no intention of simply leaving her trapped, and so powering up, he races forward, only for the cage to burst and become smoke the moment he draws near. However, that is not the only strange thing to happen, as the vapor that was once Amy's prison then rushes forward and into Metal, though rather than trapping him, it instead makes him feel stronger, faster, similar to the Phantom Ruby. As this happens, Amy drifts down to the ground, though as Metal turns his green eyes upon her, he is shocked to see that she has become transparent and somewhat staticky, as though he is looking at her through a glitching computer monitor. Troubled by this, he questions how she feels, with it coming as a relief to learn that she is for the most part okay, albeit with a slight weightless feeling. Truthfully, she is more concerned about what side effects may have come from the energy he just absorbed, and while he cannot feel any negative effects, Metal does agree to run a systems diagnostic. Unfortunately, even his sophisticated scanning programs cannot tell him much beyond the fact that it is the same kind of energy overlaying most of the island, with Metal concluding that for now he won't attempt to purge, as it may prove beneficial, both through the feeling of enhancement and because it could potentially speed up the process of modifying his Chaos Emerald radar, which could in turn help him find Emerl and the Master Emerald faster. Speaking of, the blue bot questions if Amy has any idea where his son or the others are, though here all the hammer-wielding hedgehog can do is shake her head sadly, describing being caught in a similar portal to him, and then suddenly finding herself in that awful cage where she couldn't see or hear anything, so if she had to guess, Sonic and Tails were probably captured too. Earnestly, Metal promises to save them all, relaying what the Sky Voice told him, and how he can supposedly break down the wall between dimensions. Previously, he had not understood what that meant, though after scanning Amy to find that he can only detect half of her being while the other half is replaced by the mysterious island energy, he now hypothesizes that she must be caught between their dimension and another, perhaps the one the portals lead to. If that is the case, then he has no choice but to follow the Voice's instructions regardless of their unknown intentions, and destroy these titans, whatever they are. Nodding firmly, Amy declares that she'll help, as even if she's not as fast as him, she can do reconnaissance and speak with any locals who may have taken up residence here. Having only seen the guard robots so far, Metal warns his friend to be careful. Though hoisting a Pico hammer over her shoulder, the pink hedgehog flashes him a grin reminiscent of Sonic and reassures him that she's tough, so he doesn't have to worry about her anymore. Having faith that she is capable of backing up her claim, the green-eyed android wishes her luck, then takes off once more, searching for any sign of his other friends or this so-called Titan. While the former quickly proves fruitless, it does not take long at all before he finds the Giganto-Titan, as its colossal frame is almost impossible to miss while its thundering footsteps echo through the ground like a beacon. Dashing up to it, Metal prepares to engage the mechanical monstrosity, figuring it may simply be a larger version of the Sentinels he fought earlier, though before he can initiate combat, a white-haired girl with glowing red eyes manifests in the air above the Titan's shoulder and surveys him with an inscrutable expression. Then, in a flat voice, she sighs that she had hoped when he escaped cyberspace he would have also left these islands, as only loss, pain, and inevitable death await him here. Recognizing her one visible eye as the same red as all the digital anomalies he's witnessed so far, not to mention a more minor version of Amy's glitching, Metal is unsure what to make of her, as she could be the root cause or just another prisoner, and so flying up so they may be at eye level, he questions who she is and whether she needs help. Still in that voice resembling a mourner's sigh, the girl explains that she is Sage, Dr. Eggman's latest AI creation, and that she does require assistance, though she doubts he will give it, as it is to save their father. Mechanical hackles raising ever so slightly at the idea of helping Eggman again, Metal coldly retorts that the mad scientist is no father to him, having cast him aside as soon as he stopped being useful, with the same being Sage's fate if she remains loyal to the Doctor. Unsurprisingly, the AI is as receptive to this as he and Scrap were at first, since mere supposition is rarely enough to sway logic-based machines such as them, with the floating girl aloofly replying that while she cannot deny their father's past actions, she does believe that he has changed. He is different with her than he has been with his other badnik creations. He values her beyond her functional utility. She is sure of it. Metaphorical heartbreaking for the AI, Metal flatly tells her that he does not. The Doctor is simply not capable of caring about anyone but himself. Though remaining resolute, Sage retorts that the android, who she names Brother, is wrong. Father cares for him too. She has seen the logs he keeps of Metal's development and activities, and while he does not approve of his heroics, there is unmistakable pride in the way he speaks of him, especially whenever the Bluebot achieves a new advancement. Even as an enemy of the Eggman Empire, she is certain their father still considers him his greatest creation. While Metal had not known the Doctor was keeping tabs on him, it is hardly surprising, nor does it soften his stance any, as he states this isn't Eggman expressing care for him, it's an exercise in feeding his own ego, since to the mustachioed man, Metal, like all his creations, is simply an extension of himself, with each achievement being a testament to the Doctor's own genius as the one who made them capable of reaching such heights. Looking slightly confused, Sage queries why her brother objects to this line of logic, as it is sound. They are the result of Father's brilliance, just as this Titan is to the ancients who created it, with this giving her a sense of pride, as her purpose is to safeguard and serve such a genius. For a moment, Metal is struck by intense deja vu, as once he might have said those same words if asked. Though holding to his true purpose, he replies that she doesn't have to live to serve Eggman, and that she can be her own being and choose her own path. Though growing cold, Sage replies that she has chosen her path. It is to save Father, which may require the power of the Phantom Ruby she can sense inside her brother, so if he will not willingly render aid, she will defeat him and take the gem. Earnestly, Metal states that he does not want to fight her, but he can't afford to let Eggman get his hands on the ruby again, especially when he needs its power to save his friends. Though flatly, Sage states that his friends do not factor into the equation, and that he will not be fighting her. At these words, Giganto rumbles into motion once again, clearly under Sage's command as it swings one of its large clawed hands down at Metal. For something so lumbering, it can put an impressive amount of speed behind its attacks, with the fastest machine in existence only narrowly avoiding what could have been a critical blow. Turning his eyes away from Sage to assess the threat before him, the Bluebot notices something he had not before, that atop Giganto's head is a strange sort of containment device that holds what is unmistakably the Master Emerald. Though he does not know how the monster got its hands on that, this may be just the break he needs, since if he can get up there and take it, he can become Super Metal and dispatch the Titan easily. However, this is all predicated on a rather large if, as when he flies upwards again making a beeline for the Emerald, he is blindsided by a spin attack from the Titan that catches him in the side and sends him spiraling into a mountain. At once, numerous internal systems flash into life, giving rather negative status reports, though thankfully nothing is inoperable, meaning he can get back in the fight. As the direct approach failed him, Metal decides to try something a bit sneakier this time, inspired by Shadow's fighting style, as he feints flying up at its head once again, only to dive when the Titan repeats its spin, so that when it stops moving, he is able to soar between its legs. Considering the fact that its neck appears more or less molded into place with little to no mobility, its back should be an easily accessible blind spot that will give him clear access to the Emerald. Unfortunately, it seems whoever built Giganto also recognized this design flaw, as suddenly a series of glowing red Tesla coils burst from out of the beast's back before creating a maze of crisscrossing laser coils that Metal must duck and dive in order to avoid being skewered by. To make matters worse, as the Titan moves, so do these quills, with one catching Metal on the shoulder and sending an intense jolt of that energy from the cage racing painfully through his body. In fact, were it not for the boost from absorbing Amy's prison, this would likely be enough to shut him down, though even still it delivers a temporary shock to his circuits that causes him to fall from the sky, crashing into several more searing protrusions on the way down. By the time he hits the ground, the Bluebot is in a rather sorry state, with Sage giving him an almost remorseful look as she promises to store his consciousness in cyberspace and reconstruct her brother after the end has come. Then, with a slight wave of her hand, she has Giganto raise a foot and bring it down on Metal, confident the Phantom Ruby will survive even if his physical form does not. Too damaged to flee, the heroic android does the only thing he can, and raises his hands to vainly push against the foot, delaying the inevitable if only by seconds, all the while rueing that he lacks the strength necessary to stop this monster and save his friends. In response to this wish, the Phantom Ruby begins to glow, while all around him, Metal feels his body begin to morph and grow, in a sensation that is both familiar and unfamiliar, as the last time it did this, he was not the one in control. From her vantage point, Sage's one visible eye widens slightly, as in all the simulations she ran of this battle, none had predicted the return of Metal madness. However, upon closer inspection, the AI realizes this is not madness, as while physically similar, it is larger, far larger in fact, and while Metal Madness required the final fortress as a power source to complete it, it seems this iteration is drawing on the limitless energy of the Phantom Ruby instead, therefore removing one of the previous version's very few weaknesses, that being the need to remain stationary. Having recognized this too, Metal is curious to test out the abilities of this form, with the first test being of its physical strength. Here he is not disappointed, as where before the Titan's foot was an immovable object, now it is barely a challenge, with him easily pushing it away, and then taking flight now that there is nothing to hold the blue behemoth down. Come to think of it, he is not sure what to call this form, as it has clearly surpassed Metal Madness, not to mention he would rather not use a name associated with the shameful Metal Commander. Taking this moment of flight and reacclimation to this larger body to consider, he ultimately settles on Metal Overload, and so with that decided turns his vertically positioned green eyes upon what was once his opponent, but is now his prey. Though they are comparable in terms of size, Metal Overload clearly possesses the advantage in speed, flight, and power, all of which he makes use of as he dives in an attempt to tear the Master Emerald from Giganto's head. However, this does not mean the Titan is going down without a fight, as lurching forward it attempts to make use of its blazing quills once again, but this time Metal is easily able to fly out of harm's way, and even retaliate with some back spikes of his own, as letting out a roar, he launches the metallic spires dotting his spine like missiles, with them bursting into the air before zeroing in on the Tesla coils. Though some are cut down by the lasers, those that hit have enough yield to destroy the rest, so that soon Giganto's back is bare and burned, making it the perfect place for Metal Overload to attack. Powering up a crystalline laser, the blue behemoth attempts to go in for the kill, though using that spin attack that was so dangerous before, the Titan executes a 180 turn and opens its maw to unleash a blast of its own, made of the same energy as the quills. At once, red and blue beams collide in midair, with it briefly seeming as though Giganto has clawed its way back to parity. Though this notion is promptly proved false as Metal Overload clamps his two pincers on each of the ancient android's shoulders and pulls himself in close so they are face to face, while the Titan's beam attack is pushed back to mere inches away from its open mouth. Still floating above Giganto's shoulder, Sage too has given a close look at this metal monster, with it striking her how terrifying it must have been for Sonic and his friends to stare down Metal Madness back in Rail Canyon. However, unlike those heroes, Metal means her no harm, instead keeping his gaze on the Titan as he makes one last push with his crystalline laser. At such close range, there is nothing Giganto can do to stop the blast, so that an instant later both attacks are forced back into its maw, at which point they detonate, leaving only a smoking crater where its head once was. As this happens, the unit containing the Master Emerald is also destroyed, allowing Metal to grab it in one of his giant steely claws, before turning his attention back to Sage at last. In the booming voice of the robotic dragon, he states that what she just witnessed pales in comparison to his super form, something Eggman has seen the terrible power of firsthand. So if she has truly chosen to align with him, then pass on this message. He will not let anything stand in his way until he has rescued all those who are precious to him. However, rather than eliciting a frightened response, the digital girl appears somewhat awed by this declaration, asking if this is what familial love is. Nodding, Metal replies that it is, before once more attempting to appeal to her as he has so many of his Scrapnik brethren, stating that she will get none of it from Eggman, though she could be a part of their family. All she has to do is walk away from the Doctor and come help him find his friends in Emerl, since there is no reason they have to be enemies. Inscrutable as ever, Sage gives no change of expression at these words, instead calmly waiting until Metal is done speaking, before saying that even if she did abandon Father to join her brother's crusade, it would be pointless, as she has run every possible simulation, and he and his family are doomed. For a moment, the Bluebot hears something in her tone that resembles sadness or perhaps pity, though before he can question her on this assertion, she vanishes into thin air just as abruptly as she appeared, leaving only her parting words, "I don't want to be your enemy either." And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.